Welcome to the cooking kitchen. My name is Yolanda and I will be assisting you today to make the recipe that you've received in your home cooking bag. Today I'm going to show you how to make macaroni cheese. You would have received all the ingredients in your bag that you would have purchased with your recipe. The ingredients that you would have received in your bag is pasta, some flour, butter, grated cheese, milk, and in this little sachet I've already mixed some of your herbs. So you've got garlic, parsley and paprika. You don't have to add these to your sauce, but it always does give a nice flavor. Some of the other things that you would need to make this recipe is a small little pot which we're going to make our sauce in. You would need quite a large pot that we're going to boil the water in to put our macaroni in. You need a small little bowl just to mix our sauce and our pasta together. You would usually use a spoon and a fork as well as a whisk. The whisk is very important because that's going to make sure that our sauce is not lumpy. Another thing that you are going to use is if you're going to decide to put your macaroni cheese in the oven, you would need a small little ramekin. If you want to use a big one like this, or you can always make 2 servings and make use of smaller ramekins. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare and get our pasta ready. So you're going to use your big pot, fill it half with water. It's easier to start with quite warmish water from the tap. It just makes it boil quicker. And with cooking any pasta ever, you add some salt. And you're just going to add a biggish pinch of salt. You're going to add a bit of oil, probably usually like a tablespoon of oil, and you're going to bring that up to the boil. The minute it starts boiling, you're going to add your macaroni to that until it's cooked. Once the water starts boiling, we've added our pasta. Very important, you can put the lid on, but always at an angle. So you need the steam to be able to evaporate so that it doesn't look like your pot is going to explode. Right, done. We are now going to move on to our white sauce. It's also called a bechamel sauce, and it just means that it's a white sauce made with your butter, flour and milk. We're going to start with putting our stove on, and you always want to have your stove at a low heat so that your butter doesn't burn. I'm going to put my small pot onto the stove. I'm then going to start adding my butter. And we always start doing that first because we need our butter to start melting. So get all the butter off. Alright, so put the butter in. It's going to take a few seconds because it's on quite a low heat. Alright, so our butter's almost melted. The next thing we are going to add is our flour. A rule with any white sauce is always the same amount of butter and flour. So we've used 1 tablespoon of butter with 1 tablespoon of flour. So we're just mixing it in till it forms a paste. And slowly I'm going to start adding my milk. Probably like a tablespoon at a time. If you add it too fast, it makes huge lumps. And you have not turned up the stove yet. We're keeping it on a low heat. Once it starts thickening up, that's when we're going to start using our whisk. Once your sauce is quite thick, like the consistency of thick sauce, it is time to switch your stove off. And we're going to leave that for a second, put your lid on to stay warm. Our pasta at this stage should be almost completely cooked. So if you're going to use one of these pasta strainers, all we want to do is we want to check and see. Very important, you don't want your pasta to be overcooked because otherwise it's just going to become like a porridge. So these pastas do seem perfect. I'm going to just use a spoon and just gently, and you can see I can easily cut them in half. So they are ready. Ask an adult helper or your mom or dad to just take your pot off the heat. What you're going to do is you're going to scoop it out, or you can strain it through a colander. I just find this way easier, especially if we have small people, so that you don't burn with hot water. I'm just going to scoop all my pasta out into my small bowl, which we started off with. I just want to try and get all of the water out. We've now strained our pasta, so the pasta is ready, waiting. We're now coming back to our sauce, which we just kept warm with leaving the lid on. Because the sauce has been standing for a few minutes while we strained our pasta, you can see it has become quite thick. We just want to loosen it up a bit, and I'm just going to use a bit of water, not too much, just a bit of the water, and I'm just going to whisk it a little bit, and this is where the whisk works quite well, just to loosen up our sauce a bit. Next thing we're going to add is we're going to add our little sachet of herbs, which I've already discussed has already been mixed for you. Now I just open the little sucker over here. Okay, as I said before, you do not need to put the herbs in. Lots of people don't like to have too herby sauce. It just gives it a nice flavor. I'm also going to add to this some salt, just a pinch of salt. You don't need to have more salt. You can always taste it, and we are going to taste it, which is quite an important part of cooking. I'm adding some pepper, and that should do it. Now I'm going to just taste it, just to check. And remember always, when you're tasting, use a clean spoon and don't double dip. Don't go back in after you've tasted it. So I think my sauce needs a bit more salt. I'm going to do another. I've added my salt. Now it's time to taste again. And remember, clean spoon. Also, if you don't need to use 50 new clean spoons, just go and rinse it off under the tap and make sure that you don't have any germs on there that you're going to transfer to your pot. Much, much better, and that's perfect for me at this stage. Next thing what we're going to do is we're going to add our cheese, but we're going to add our cheese to our pasta. We're going to combine everything together now. So we start with our pasta that we have already strained. I'm going to add half of my cheese, not all my cheese because the other cheese is going to go on top. So half of my cheese into my pasta. Gently you're going to start stirring it around, and you don't want to use too much force, otherwise you're going to break up all your pasta. So we just have some of our cheese in there. Next we're going to add our cheese sauce. And you also don't have to use all of it. You can maybe start off with half or 3/4, and we're just going to stir this around. And it needs to be quite saucy, or it needs to be properly coated, because otherwise you have very, very dry macaroni cheese. All right, it's all nicely stirred. I'm now going to add it to my little ramekin. And as I said before, you don't have to have it only in the one. You can have it in 2 or 3 smaller ones, or you can have it in a square. Whatever you have at home, you can add it into that. All right, I'm adding it into there. If you want to make little takeaway ones, or you want to make some macaroni cheese that you might want to keep in the fridge or the freezer for later, just put them in those little takeaway foil containers, and you can bake them, or you don't have to bake them now. You can pop them in the freezer for later, but we're doing one in a glass container as if we were going to have it for lunch. All right, so I'm going to add the rest of my cheese to the top. The reason for that is that we want it, once we pop it in the oven now, the cheese is just going to start bubbling nicely. Again, you don't need to put it into the oven. If you want to eat it just like that, all you'll do is you'll pop this into a plate. Let's try and do that so I can show you. You're going to just pop this onto a plate or a bowl, and it is ready to eat. And you can always add a bit of your cheese on the top. And you're ready to go. Alright, our macaroni cheese that's been in the oven has been cooking for, I would say, half an hour. You just want the top crust and the cheese to start melting and just crisping up a little bit. Remember, everything is already cooked inside, so it's really just to brown your cheese and to make it a bit crispy on the outside. I'm going to scoop a little bit. Let's use a fork and see what this tastes like. It's very hot, so when you get yours out, just be very careful that you don't burn yourself. Get a little bit of a crispy bit. You can see how hot it is. Ready for lunch.